Hey guys, welcome back to Margot Watches Movies. Tonight we're going to be covering the Season 2, Episode 3 of The Last of Us. This is coming off last week, which was a action-packed, heavy episode with, the moment that happened. This week was a lot more of a come down, I'd say, kind of dealing with the aftermath and, the emotional impact, the traumas of such heavy casualties that Jackson suffered in the battle for Jackson, I guess, as you could call it. And then, of course, spoilers here, but the death of Joel. It was a slow episode. The concerns I've had about Bella Ramsey playing Ellie, I think, were prevalent here as well. She was good in some parts. Her irritability, I think, is really kind of grinding on me a little bit. She's just always having to be the sassy, smug know-it-all, and it was a small element of the video game version of Ellie was there, but it's really dialed and cranked up to 10 with how Bella Ramsey's portraying it. I just think that there could be a lot more nuance to her performance, and she's really not selling me as likable, and I'm really worried about her having to carry the majority heavy lifting of this show. I wonder if the showrunners might have known this as well, because they're giving focus elsewhere. We got a brief introduction to a group who's you experience quite a bit in the game. If you haven't played the game, the people that were communicating and whistling someone at the start of the episode, they're called Seraphites, and we'll get probably a lot more info about that on episode 4 next week, so I won't necessarily get into that right now, but they are a cool kind of religious, they mention a prophet there. They follow some woman called the Mother, and their whole communication, at least in the combat sections of The Last of Us 2, is through these whistles. And I did in the game, combat sections against them were some of my favorite aspects of the game, so it's cool that we got that introduction to them. There was a pretty brutal bookend to that introduction. But this is really the episode that's just dealing with all of the aftermath and really setting up the table for what the actual meat and potatoes of the season is. You could almost think of the first 2 episodes as a little bit of a prequel in regards to the main story of what the second game was and what this season's going to be, which is revenge. And there was a lot of issues fans of the game had about the revenge aspect, because the first game and the first season covered, I feel a lot deeper thematic material. And there's a lot of criticism regarding just basically a straightforward revenge plot for the second game. And it's they tried to address that in some dialogue. They had Ellie read her note at the town meeting. This isn't just about revenge, it's about justice. But it is about revenge. She wants revenge. She's angry, and she's justifiably angry. Now the one tweak they did that was not in the game, Seth, the bigot guy, who called Ellie, when her and Dina kissed, little homophobic epithet. He got a really cool redemption arc in this show where he kind of stands up at the town hall. He's for taking action, and he's actually the one that helps Ellie and Dina start their journey, gears them up with supplies. That aspect of this episode I did like, and I like, kind of you get a little bit more of the journey to Seattle than you got in the game. And I have to say, I think the star, the breakout star of this show so far, of season 2, has to be Dina for me. I think she's a vast improvement on the video game version of her, whereas Ellie is just I really don't want to pick on her, but it's such a downgrade to me, you know, getting like watching Game of Thrones and things like that. I'd never read the book, so now I kind of feel like I'm the douche that has to be like, oh, I'm the source material guy, and it's just not working for me as far as Ellie goes. But I think Dina is making a really interesting companion. They haven't really, you know, besides the kiss, they haven't gone too far down that road, but she is crushing it. She's charismatic. She has this kind of like mischievous humor about her, and you really see like the loyalty that she has and how she's kind of a ride or die, and I think that worked really well. And I'm really digging Dina so far, and I think the actress portraying her is probably gonna get quite a bit of recognition from this, and probably go on to do get some nice roles. So kudos to her, hats off. She was the star of this episode for me. And other than that, you know, the game I mentioned, and if you watched my review last week, I wasn't sure how they were going to handle Tommy. So in the game, he takes off to Seattle because he was there, right, when he was where Dina was last week. So I guess they're going to flip it where Tommy is following them. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, if they're going to integrate Tommy at all, because some of the best moments of the game involve Tommy. You know, he basically leaves in search of a solo revenge, and Ellie and Dina are kind of playing catch up to him, following his trail of blood and all that. So I'm curious how they're going to integrate Tommy into this, if at all, because the Lunar brother is pretty good as him, and I think he's going to be needed in this. You know, we didn't really get any of the Jackson 5 group this week. We got like a brief shot of Manny, and then they do that cut at the end where you obviously see that these wolves, as they call them, the Western Liberation Front, they are not a small group. This is a really big operation. They have heavy artillery. They have tons of guns, tons of bullets, and tons of bodies. And you know, the end of the episode, I can kind of see, you know, if you watch the post-show recap, there's a pretty big character that we're seemingly going to get introduced to next week. I don't know if it's going to be like a all on the wolves, because I've heard that this is going to be done over 2 seasons, so they're going to have to fill that out somehow. But all in all, this episode, you know, coming off like the highs and the vast scope and the battles of last week, this is very much a palate cleanser in a way, a cool down episode, really just setting the table for what's to come. So overall, I think it's around a 6 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10. This might be one of the worst episodes of the series so far. Dina was a high point for me. This therapist lady, who's played by a wonderful actress, but she's just not needed. It's so silly to me. And like, there's just a completely wasted scene early on in the episode between her and Ellie, where she's trying to ask like what Joel did, and Ellie's nothing. And it's like, okay, cool. What was the point of that? So she could tell Tommy that Ellie's a liar, which she is lying, but I don't get the point or the inclusion of that character. They could have easily just kept it in the game where it's like Joel telling Tommy about this, so you kind of lost that bond. You get like one little scene of Tommy cleaning some blood off Joel's body, and it really didn't have the emotional impact that they were going for me. So all in all, this is very much a bridge kind of filler episode. There's some good elements to it, namely for me, it's just my opinion, I think Dina is awesome. I'm loving her character much more than the game, and the actress, you know, both physically, you know, attractiveness wise, charisma wise, I think she's hitting all the right notes as Dina. I'm worried about Ellie as a character, but I think they're going to just have to focus more on the wolves, the Seraphites, the people that whistle. They're also called Scars. And yeah, so that'll wrap it up. This is Margot Watches Movies. I'm doing this pretty late after a long weekend, but I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one.